Three, two, one.
Welcome in Life in the Red podcast. I'm Chris. There's Steve. There's Parker. We continue from our remote locations here on Thursday, November 4th, 2021. It's 3:18 p.m.
Thank you.
We are coming.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. We are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You are. I was one extra thank you in there, I think. We're coming to you live 2 days before Nebraska hosts Ohio State, 11 a.m. kick at Memorial Stadium. Nebraska 3-6. Buckeyes, of course, ranked fifth in the college football playoff rankings, 7-1, rolling. Had a close one last week against Penn State. We all know the history of this matchup the past 6 years or so, save for the one game Adrian Martinez's freshman year that Nebraska led at halftime. So let's just get right into it. Let's talk Ohio State. What are we expecting to see Saturday? And what do you think? What do you guys think needs to happen to keep Memorial Stadium from emptying out before the end of the year?
Oh, I mean, here's the thing with Ohio State. I don't know. I don't want a total breakdown, but the things that make an impression on me are I watched them against Indiana and they dismantled Indiana. And I thought this is a typical Ohio State team. I mean, they're a typical college football playoff team that probably will be in the college football playoff. That was Indiana the night I think they won 56-14. Hold on, I got it right here. 54-7. And I was really taken by them. Now, since then, they played Penn State and they didn't win resoundingly. I think concerns came out of that game for Buckeye fans.
Ohio State offensive line played really bad.
Yeah, 7 false start penalties. And since then, the only other thing I'd add at this point before you guys start in is like you talk to their writers. I talked to Rob Aller, their columnist at the Columbus Dispatch, and he doesn't sound that impressed. I mean, he thinks this will be a game Saturday. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially, I mean, I think the thing about Ohio State, especially if you look at their offense, and so defensively, they changed play callers after a couple of games. That they have some young players on defense, which you heard a couple of, like I think Mike Dawson said this week, young players at this point, you got 8 or 9 games under your belt. You are essentially no longer a freshman or, inexperienced. So they're working some young people in on defense. Offensively, though, they're really balanced. That's the thing that jumps out about Ohio State.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, so Joey Kaufman, who I think both Baz and I communicated this week to beat writer at the Columbus Dispatch, he sort of echoed, I guess, the sentiments of it hasn't been perfect. Maybe, Nebraska can maybe give them a game and all of that. And then you look at the numbers, and Ohio State's averaging 1.4 yards per play more than anybody else in the Big Ten. They're number 2 nationally, over 8 yards a play. C.J. Stroud's thrown 15 touchdowns and no interceptions over the last 4 games since he got back in the starting lineup. They got 3 NFL receivers in their starting lineup with Olave Wilson and Jackson Smith-Ajiba, a tight end who's going to play in the NFL and Ruckert, and a freshman running back who, if Kenneth Walker is the best in the Big Ten from Michigan State, Travion Henderson from Ohio State might be right behind. So you're not stretching it to say that they're elite at every skill position, backfield position. And then up until last week, you would have said that they had maybe the best offensive line in the Big Ten too. So it's a big, they're really talented, obviously, especially on offense. And it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from only scoring 33 points against the number 5 overall defense in the country last week in Penn State.
Yeah, one of those was a scoop and score though, 7, and then they got put on the 28-yard line by I think Baz said it was an interception. So they got 10 from the defense basically.
Yeah, they're very interesting to me because they absolutely destroy overmatched teams. But you look at you look at the better teams they played, and Minnesota pushed them hard until Ibrahim went down. Obviously, Penn State pushed them pretty hard. Oregon, of course, beat them in Columbus. Even Tulsa, that game was not it was a 3-score game, but it was not a blowout by any means until
that was 7 points early in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah. So you look at the best teams on Ohio State's schedule, and it's not like the Buckeyes have just kind of run away and hid from. So you can see why some people think Nebraska's going to keep this interesting, I think. So
Here Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Pat,
Sid.
go ahead.
No,
I
go
got a
ahead.
hoops analogy.
Okay.
A good hoops analogy. See what you think. This is not my mind. I was told this by a coach. Ohio State is like a basketball team that can slap full court pressure on you. And they will slap full court pressure on, and like you were saying, the struggling programs, the bad teams, they can't break it. The good teams, they can. They know how to make one or two passes and beat the press, and then it's on. Then the game. And the question is Nebraska capable of beating the press?
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that's a great analogy. I think that's perfect because I think Nebraska has the capability to beat the press, right? Like they're a big play offense. They can take the top off. They've got an athletic quarterback, but they've also got an offense that will give it to the other team. And we saw it happening last week against Purdue. The offensive line has gotten better, but you wouldn't say they're world beaters by any means. So you can kind of see it both ways. Like Nebraska certainly has that capability, but you got to go out and do it. You got to go out and be mistake-free and do it.
Parker, continue the analogy. I know what you're thinking. I know what's going on through Parker's mind right now. Is Nebraska's point guard hurt? Is he capable? Does Nebraska have the point guard to break the press? Adrian.
Yeah.
And is the point guard's ankle okay? Is he healthy?
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I think the main thing is just if you want to let's keep the analogy of a full court press. I mean, you can't turn the ball over. You know, you can't give up the easy run out. You can't give up the easy run out. I mean, you can't. They got to scoop and score and 3 points off a turnover at the 28. The defense, Baz had the stats great. They've scored 6 touchdowns defensively this year.
Yeah,
so
that's a big number.
It's not a fluke. It's not a fluke. It's something that they've done. They've got good athletes and they've done. It's interesting listening to people this week. I mean, they've essentially there's some defenses that you'll go against that are big play defenses. They're going to take a lot of risk and they're going to try to make big plays. And Ohio State, if they were that way at the beginning of the year, they're less so now since they've changed play caller. You know, they're going to play. They're going to play safe. They're going to keep things in front of them because they know they've got the offense to go put points on the board. And why risk giving up a bunch of easy stuff over the top? And so you've got to make your own luck. Obviously, you've got to make your own breaks. That includes you just have to have good quarterback play if you're going to beat them. But I guess where my mind actually was going, Sipple, was if you can beat the press, you can play with them, but you have to beat the press and then play at your own speed. You know, you see teams that are athletic and can play full court in basketball, they'll run somebody off the floor if somebody tries to beat them at their own game, if you're good at it.
Yes. Yeah.
So Nebraska has to be able to handle the pressure and then also play at its own speed and play the game at the pace that it wants to.
Good points.
Let's just keep the basketball analogy going. Yeah. See how involved we can make it. So anyways, when they go into Horns personnel, the bunch set.
Are you gonna look? What are we doing late in the shot clock on the baseline out of bounds? Is what I want to know.
Sort of like a triangle. It's like a triangle derivative when they run the bubble.
Yeah. Well, this kind of leads us into our next topic, and you already kind of touched on it, Parker. It's Adrian, right? Like he's got to be great. Yeah, he's probably going to be the best he's been all year, and we don't know what his health status is. We've seen the boom and the bust. We've seen the boom and the bust against Ohio State from Adrian the past 3-4 years. So I guess just from that point of view, we've seen that teams can play with Ohio State. They're not invincible. They're not this monolith, and we've seen Nebraska can score points, can make big plays. How important is Adrian to what's going to happen Saturday as far as Nebraska?
Oh my God, Adrian! That's the whole conversation about Adrian all the time. He's all about him. I mean, I believe they've made the offense too much about him.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what my contention has been for, I'd say, 2+ years. Got to put more around him. Can't be so much about it. He can't he can't rely so much on Adrian in the run game. You saw against Minnesota what Nebraska's offense looks like when he can't run. They ran 2 design quarterback run plays. They just don't have much else to go to. Kind of the same against Purdue, although, come on, I mean, that conversation's all about Adrian throwing 4 picks. And why did he even get the opportunity to throw 4 picks? That's what the conversation's about. But yeah, Baz, I mean, what the hell? It's always about Adrian.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made it that way. And I think I'm always in the camp that they've made it too much about him and put too much on his shoulders. And maybe that's one reason he wears down and gets hurt so much. Just saying.
I agree with a lot of that. Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of that, Sip. It is all about him. Like, we all know that. Like, I knew as I was asking the question what the answer was going to be, because like, we all know it's all about Adrian. Everything that happens Saturday is going to fall on his shoulders. And
yeah, what
is that? Yeah.
No, go ahead. See, what we're saying is some people, Baz, are going to say, sorry to interrupt. Some people are going to say, oh, come on, man. It's always about the quarterback. We're talking about a matter of degrees here. At some places, it's not as much about the quarterback because there's other.
Is it all about C.J. Stroud at Ohio State?
No, it's not. It's not.
Is it all about Tanner Morgan at Minnesota?
No, not at all. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point. Those are great examples. Thanks. Go ahead, Parker.
So Adrian had 200-yard rushing games in Nebraska's first 3 outings this year. Had 111 against Illinois, 112 against Buffalo. And then even after that, he made some plays with his legs, kept some plays alive, scrambling against Oklahoma, had 72 yards against Michigan State, 50 yards against Northwestern. But over the last 3 weeks, it's really, he got hurt against Michigan State, and then obviously didn't have to do a lot against Northwestern because they blew out the Wildcats. But, 8 carries for 38 against Michigan, 20 of that came on 1 scramble. 8 for -17 against Michigan with sack yardage, 10 for 18 last week against Purdue. I mean, the rushing production from the quarterback spots really trailed off. And looking at, scrambling wise, he's only taken off in passing situations 3 times in the last 2 weeks. So that's really sort of tailed off. Part of that's because teams have recognized that they have to keep him in the pocket, and they've gone to, in some cases, extremes to keep him from being able to get out. But the other thing is his health has deteriorated some over the course of the year for exactly the reason Simple said. I mean, they just rely on him a lot. So for me, the question is, how much can they get out of him in the run game? And I don't mean, I'm not saying he needs to carry it 25 times. Probably not smart, but he's got to be a factor, and it's got to be Ohio State's they've got to make Ohio State respect what he does in the run game, because the option stuff, I mean, that's generated a lot of production for Nebraska this year in the run game, has been the counter work, the speed option stuff, the misdirection, being able to put a player and 2 players, a dive man and a pitch read in a bind and use space to create yards. And so if they can't do that against Ohio State, or if Adrian's limited in that regard, it's going to be really hard to just line up and slam it between the tackles with Ramir Johnson and expect that to work and be enough. But if they can kind of have their run game, Adrian doesn't have to run for 100 yards, but if they can be productive with that and show the wrinkles and do all of the different things that they've shown at times over the course of the year they're capable of hitting, that just opens up so much in the passing game, and it makes Nebraska the balanced offense that can be mindful of the clock and move the ball and be a little bit more effective. And so that I mean, recipe sounds simple, but like always, it's really, really reliant on Adrian being healthy, fast, explosive, and making good decisions, 99% of the time over the course of a game.
Playing off that, what needs to happen Saturday to keep butts in the seats until the 4th quarter? We've seen it the last 2 years here, 38-0 at halftime, 35-0 at halftime.
Whoa.
Place clears out, 3rd quarter. What needs to happen? What needs to happen Saturday to keep fans at least interested enough to stick around in the 4th quarter into the end of the game?
I'd like to think that if the score is, if Nebraska is down 11, with 10 minutes to go, that would keep them in there, unlike last week. You know,
Yeah.
the opponent's different, but Purdue led 38-20. Oh, what the hell was the score? 28-17. 28-17 with 10 minutes left, and that was the mass exodus. If that's the score, if it's, let's say it's 38-27, it seems like it'd be more likely to be something like that. You would think that would keep people around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think so.
I would think so.
I think over the first 45 minutes, over the first 3 quarters, I mean, I think Nebraska needs to have the ball for 25 of them. You know, and that would, you know, Frost said it today. We talked to Frost earlier here on Thursday after practice, and one of the things that they did really well against Oklahoma in that game was they controlled the pace of it. You know, I think they only had 3 possessions in the first half. Part of the reason it was 10-7 at halftime was because Oklahoma just didn't have that many opportunities with the ball to go score. So that's I'm not advocating for Nebraska to play a total, like, take the air out of the game and just try to, there's teams that have done that before. Hey, we're just going to try to keep it close. Yeah. I don't think it's about that, because you got to go in with an aggressive mindset and say, hey, we're going to take, what we can get here. But it's really important, like both Minnesota and Purdue, the last 2 games have just dominated Nebraska in the game management, clock management department. And then you're chasing and all of that. It cannot happen. I mean, Nebraska's got to be in control of the clock from the outset. If they do that, they're likely, more likely to be in the game in the second half, which would keep people around.
Bass?
Yeah, no, I think Parker nailed it. I was going to say the exact same thing. It's got to be the Oklahoma game all over again. It has to be. If it's 14-10 at halftime, then you can bet Nebraska's going to take that. Or even if it's 21-14 or 21-13 at halftime, you're absolutely taking that compared to what you've been at the last couple of years in Memorial Stadium. So yeah, it's like Parker said, you're not taking this isn't Nebraska at USC back in the Bill Callahan era when we're just trying to get the game over as quick as possible. But you have to find a way to control the clock like you did at Oklahoma. That's easier said than done. But you've got the defense, you would think, to at least slow Ohio State down and scan your offense, execute enough, and put together enough long drives to keep that other offense off the field. So that's absolutely the plan. It's exactly.
And here's one other thing just to put into that conversation. Obviously, this sort of probably bridges into the next phase of this conversation. But even though the season feels a lot different than it did a month ago with that when Michigan was at Memorial Stadium, you can guarantee that if it's a 1-score game, end of the third quarter, into the fourth, even though there's a lot of people that are going to have some skepticism about whether Nebraska can actually get it over the hump for the first time this year, win a really big game for the first time in Frost's tenure, you better believe that place will be juiced if it's a ball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
People will feel it. People will sense the opportunity if it's there. The issue for Nebraska against Ohio State in recent years has just been getting it, past the early third quarter where you're still right in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that brings us, I think, to a good spot to talk about the hot topic, which is the elephant in the room. The question is this: will we hear anything on Scott Frost's job status by the end of the season? And Parker just mentioned it, getting over the hump. Nebraska hasn't done it. You're playing Ohio State, this, that, and the other. There's been a lot of talk. Scott's addressed it a couple times this week already, just the outside stuff. So I'll open it up to you guys, because I think we might have some differing opinions here. Will we hear anything on Scott Frost's job status by the end?
Parker has the strongest feelings on this. Go ahead, Parker.
I think, we heard Ted Carter, the university system president, yesterday say that they haven't made a decision yet. I guess this is what I think about it. If they've already made a decision, like somewhere in the brain trust, if they've already made the decision to bring Scott back, which is no guarantee, obviously, we don't know if they've made a decision either way. But I think if they've made a decision that they're going to bring him back, I think there's a chance they would announce that during the bye week. So I guess my answer is that, yeah, I think we could. I don't think it's a guarantee. but I think we could. And this is why. I mean, you heard like Matt Wells, the Texas Tech coach that was fired. Part of the reason they fired him before the end of the year was they didn't want to give him the opportunity to win any games down the stretch that would sort of bolster his case for coming back. To me, this is sort of the opposite. Like if Trev Alberts and the Brain Trust decides to bring Scott back for the 2022 season, it is not going to be based purely on a wins and losses standpoint. It's not at this point. Like what you're talking about is what they see the arc of the program being, because the wins and losses, obviously, that deck is stacked against God. And as much as like 3 wins obviously would change those fortunes a little bit and substantially as it pertains to this year. But I think it's really, if they believe that this is going to turn around and it's going to turn around either down the stretch this year or next year, I think the bye week is a good time to announce that, because you take out of the realm of possibility having to try to explain bringing them back if they lose against Wisconsin and Iowa. In other words, you get the news out of the way, you explain why you believe in him for 2022. Hopefully that frees the kids up and then they can go play their asses off. But if you're looking at it from the other side of the coin, you take out of the equation the possibility that you've got to stand up there after a 3-9 season and explain why you've decided to bring him back. So I think if they bring him back, I think if they're bringing him back and they know it already, I think they'll announce it sometime after the Ohio.
So if you're Trev Alberts, what you're hoping for is a close game, a win. I mean, you're hoping for a win, but at least a close game. And then, I mean, you didn't mention the recruiting element, but I think that's a sizable part of it. Then you announce it early in the week. The coaches go out on the bye week and recruit, knowing that at least they have a job into next year, and they can say that to people. I think that's really important. Now there is precedence that that didn't happen in 2013. If you guys, now Parker, you were not here, obviously. Baz was around, kind of, right, Baz?
I was around, yeah. I was
Yeah.
vaguely aware of my surroundings.
They didn't, Sean Eichhorst took Bo Pelini, the Bo Pelini decision in 2013, right through the season. He announced it right after the season. It was on a Saturday after the final game. So, I mean, but it was really awkward for everybody. So they don't have to do it. Now, the other thing about this is if they don't announce anything next week and it's silence, what does that do, Baz? What is that? Does it suggest anything? I mean, what is that?
It just stirs up even more talk, right? And more rumor mongering and whatever else you want to call it, which that kind of plays into my answer. I say no. And
okay, why?
You guys have laid out a very good case why it will happen, and you're going to make me sound very stupid, which wouldn't be the first time that's happened. But I don't see it. Trev Alberts doesn't seem like the type of athletic director that's going to make that announcement before the end of the season, unless they are bringing him back. And unless they've already made that decision. And from all accounts, Trev Alberts wants this to work with Scott Frost. And he's said as much, essentially. He wants to support Scott Frost and give him what he needs to succeed and everything else. But it just doesn't, I just think back to even when Trev was hired, how close to the vest that was played and how it kind of all happened very quickly when he was.
Oh, it did. You're right.
And so I think a little bit of that's at play, and I'm not saying they're going to get to the Saturday after the Iowa game and announce that Scott Frost has been fired and announce a new head coach. I'm not saying anything like that, but I don't think unless it's an ironclad, stone cold lock that they know they're bringing him back. They've told Scott Frost that. I just don't see it happening before the end of the season, but I do see it happening relatively quickly after the Iowa game.
One thing I think we can all agree on, I mean, it would take a lot for them to decide to fire Scott and announce it before the year ends.
Yeah.
I mean, they could maybe, Trev in his heart of hearts at some point between now and November 26th comes to that decision himself, but I don't think I'd be shocked if weird things happen all the time, but I'd be shocked if anything, if Frost was going to get fired, I'll be shocked if it happens before the Iowa game.
Guarantee Scott Frost fired right after the Ohio State game now.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah,
Before
right.
they get out of the locker room. Yeah. So
I'll be going to
all right,
bed
well,
late and getting up early. I mean,
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
God, let's not
that's
talk
that time of year.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something a little more positive. To wrap up the football talk here, Nuri Newelly was put on scholarship today. Awesome news for a really cool dude, an engaging guy, foreign exchange student, played at Norris High School his senior year, went out to Colorado State, started 7 games as a freshman, came back here, got inserted into the lineup and magic, and all of a sudden Nebraska's offensive line got better. So I think a very deserving scholarship for a guy that if you talk to him, just one of the neatest dudes, most engaging dudes you could ever want to meet. Knows 4 languages. He was telling us about that up in the hallway the other day on Monday in Memorial Stadium. Just he loves being around people. He loves the game and got rewarded for his performance today.
Yeah, I was talking to him in Arabic the other day.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah,
You're
were.
fluent. You're
Yeah.
fluent. Yeah.
He might have been speaking Arabic. You were just,
I speak French a lot, as in pardon my French, but
That's really good, Baz.
yeah.
Parlez-vous français?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
like
great
that.
news. That is great news. And Miles Farmer got a black shirt too. So there
Yeah,
was.
And Miles Farmer got a black shirt. All right.
And Chase
There was-
Contreras is starting at kicker again this weekend.
And Chase Contreras is
It
starting.
was a newsy 7 minutes with Scott.
It was. Should we give some game predictions real quick? I just realized we haven't
Let's
done
do
that
it.
yet.
Yeah, you guys
All right,
go first.
I'll go first. I don't. Ohio State's going to win. Is it the total blowout we've seen in the past? Maybe not. But I don't see Nebraska being able to play mistake-free enough on offense to execute what we talked about. The ball control and limiting the possessions and things like that. So I think Ohio State wins 42-17.
So that's all right. There you go. 42-17 Baz. Parker.
Yeah, I picked it. I mean, similar. I picked it actually very similar to Baz, 41-20. I think Nebraska will. At this point, we're pretty good and well beyond the sort of like moral victory phase of things. This is what I would say. I think Nebraska's going to play hard. I think there's going to be a stretch of the game that I think will be competitive. Maybe it won't be right at the beginning. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. It's right from the outset. But Ohio State just has the ability to make competitive games look non-competitive on the scoreboard really quickly. And I think they'll meet some resistance from Nebraska, but I do think that they'll end up covering a 2-touchdown spread. So yeah, 41-20.
41-20.
1-20. So what do we got so far? Say it again. 41-20. Then Baz. One more time.
42-17.
Yes. What am I going to do here? It's not like I've thought about a score all that much. I mean, I do think the 11 a.m. kickoff is a factor. You kind of, if you're Nebraska, I hope you catch Ohio State sleepwalking a little bit early, just which teams do sometimes. I think it'll be similar to the Penn State game. I think Nebraska will hang in there pretty well. I'll say 38 Ohio State, 21 Nebraska. 38-21. I'm going to give Nebraska's defense some respect there.
All right. I have disrespected Nebraska's defense and Steve Sipple's
We're picking him to score 4 more points than Sipple did.
Yeah, I've blatantly disrespected the black shirts.
The blatant disrespect for picking 40 instead of 38.
You are a detriment to the athletic department.
Wow. Okay. Let's talk some hoops and get out of here real quick. Season opener is Tuesday, 5 days away. I'm actually writing some season preview stuff today, getting that all finished up. That'll be in your newspaper on Sunday. Nebraska opens against Western Illinois, November 9th. Pretty, I think, highly anticipated opener, especially the way the 2 exhibition games went, and certainly the way the exhibition game against Colorado went last week on Halloween, with Nebraska leading that game 33-11, 10 minutes into the game, essentially. So I grow more fascinated by this season by the day. I think Nebraska's got a shot to really take a big step this year. I've seen some national type analysts come out and call Nebraska a surprise team this year, a team that could contend for an NCAA tournament berth. And look, like I've said before, that means Nebraska just has to get to 7, 8, 9, 10 in the conference. And I think they're certainly capable with this team. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting season coming up, and we get underway Tuesday.
Hey, Bad.
So you're saying 7-13, 8-12 in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So what's that, Parker?
That Nebraska plays Creighton in 12 days.
I know, it's insane.
Less than 2 weeks away. Isn't that crazy?
It's insane. It's on it's a night game. I think it's on a Friday night. Maybe it's on Saturday.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Good. You've got the schedule pulled up. I don't.
I do.
So, but yeah, no, and Creighton's rebuilding. That's an early chance to build momentum. That's the thing with the way this schedule's set up for Nebraska. They can really build some early momentum in the non-conference. You're going to catch Creighton early, which you'd rather catch them in November than in December when you normally play, certainly. And you're going to have a chance for a couple really nice wins. Auburn on a neutral court at NC State. You get K-State at home. There's some potential there for Nebraska to really, really kind of set itself up for conference play. They get Michigan and Indiana for their 2 early conference games, and Michigan ain't going to be no party, that's for sure. And Indiana is going to look a lot different under Mike Woodson. But yeah, there's a chance for Nebraska this first month to really build momentum and kind of get something going downhill heading into December and January.
So you're working on a special section for the hoops team that's coming out when?
It'll be in the Sunday newspaper. I believe that's November, what did you say, the 4th? So Friday the 5th, Saturday the 6th, Sunday the 7th.
That's the way that works. That's
the way that works. Yeah, that's how math works. It'll be in the Sunday paper. We'll have rundowns of the roster, both the men's and the women's roster. Brent Wagner handling the women's side of things. We're talking. We'll have some reasons to fill up PBA. Reasons you should come watch these teams, and we'll have some cool little stories. Just talking to fans, being able to be back in the building for the first time since the 1920 season. Talked to 3 folks myself and got some really great stories out of it. So it'll be fun. Looking forward to seeing how it turns out. And yeah, we'll have more for you Sunday.
I've heard Amy's got a pretty good team too. Amy Williams, the women's coach.
Oh, that's who you're talking about, Amy Williams.
Amy.
I've heard there's a talent escalation in her program that bears watching as well.
There might be 2 pretty good teams over at PBA this year. It's going to be fun to watch. All right, let's get out of here. We do want to say this before we go. The new Husker Extra app is live in the App Store for your iPhone, for your Android device. Go download it or update it if you already have it on your phone. You'll be able to get all the Husker Extra content we're pushing out on a daily basis. All the videos featuring Parker and Sipple, the Sip and Sam podcast, my basketball
the showdown,
the Sip and Sam showdown. You can set it up to organize it by sport. It's a really cool looking situation. It just launched today. So yeah, go download it or get your app updated in the App Store.
Hey, Baz.
You can listen to this very podcast in the Husker.
That's right. You can listen to the podcast in the.
If this sports writing thing doesn't work out, that was a pretty good sales pitch. You could probably be a pretty good salesman.
No, I'd be a terrible salesman.
Why do you say that?
I hate people. I hate talking to people. I hate dealing with people in a sales setting. No, I'm just kidding.
I could see you selling sprinklers and stuff like that.
I'd like to, I'd like to install sprinklers. That sounds like great. Get my hands dirty, dig some lines, run a ditch witch.
You should work a tower crane.
Maybe I'll work a tower crane. Maybe I'll go join that crew.
That was awesome.
I about walked over there and applied the other day. We were over at Memorial Stadium. Just walked on the job site with no PPE and tried to apply for a job on the tower crane.
Yeah.
Hey, can I work on this crane?
Just start climbing up. Climbing up the ladder. Hey, fellas.
What's up, guys?
I get about 10 feet up, but it said that probably wasn't for me. I'm guessing.
You guys could handle that.
Yeah, probably. I'm young and virile, so it's fine.
I'm sorry.
What? I said young. I said I'm young and virile. The virility is high in this corner of the world.
Striking.
Seems like a lot of information.
Seems like a good place to stop this podcast too. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you next week.